Mayor, we are ready to begin our meeting.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Want to welcome everyone to the Vinton Town Council meeting for this Tuesday evening, January 19th, 2021. Certainly glad that all of our folks are here on the Zoom call, and anyone else that might be watching on Facebook, we're certainly happy that you're with us. So Susan, if you would please call the roll.
Roll call for council. Councilmember Lyles.
Here.
Councilmember Mullins.
Here.
Councilmember Stovall.
Here.
Vice Mayor McCarty.
Here.
Mayor Gross.
Here.
We do have a quorum of council. Town staff that are present: Pete Peters, Susan Johnson, Ann Cantrell, Chief Drummond, Anita McMillan, Nathan McClung, and Mandy Baker. Also present, Jeremy Carroll, our town attorney, Debbie Adams with the Vinton Messenger, and Dave Miller with Core and Maine. I would like to confirm that our meeting is being held in accordance with Town Ordinance number 1016 and Section 4-0.01G of Chapter 1289 of the 2020 Acts of the Virginia General Assembly, and everyone present is participating by electronic means. Mayor, the meeting is yours.
Okay, again, thank you, Susan. We will start as we always do with our moment of silence. I'll ask you to stand for that, and while we're standing, we'll ask Councilmember Lyles to lead us in the pledge. We found it works better if we just let him say it and the rest of us can stand. Now, while we have the moment of silence, which I will close after a few minutes, as always, I'll ask you to keep this country, this community, and certainly this council meeting in your thoughts and prayers. And folks, I'd like to mention also, we have a lot of friends and family that are really sick these days. There's the COVID thing and a lot of other things. So just extra special prayer for all those who are distressed by illness or disease this evening. So if you will stand for a moment of silence and the pledge, please. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this day and for the meeting here tonight. Father, we just ask for your continued blessings upon our community and especially upon those who may be sick or afflicted this evening. In his holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Susan. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And with that, we'll move on to the upcoming community events and announcements. Vice Mayor McCarty, you have anything this evening?
We don't have a whole lot going on right now because of COVID, but we have been told that the Dogwood Committee has been meeting and they are planning to announce some updates for the 2021 festival in the near future, as well as the Chamber is also considering some tweaks to their events in March and May. So as soon as we find the information out, we will share it with you. But at this time, we are just staying at home and trying to stay safe and healthy.
Yep. I think that's a really good idea, Vice Mayor. It's a time to spend, it's a good time to be with your family, I'll say that, and it's a good time to stay safe if you possibly can, that's for sure. So thank you for that. Anyone else have any announcements or activities they'd like to announce? If not, we'll move on to the request to postpone or change anything on the agenda. You folks have any changes? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. And tonight we have a few items. You see the regular council meeting, the minutes for the regular council meeting of December 15th and January 5th. There's also a resolution in there that's basically a reimbursement for CARES Act monies that we receive so that we can reimburse the salaries. Also a resolution for the facade grant program, that loan was satisfied. And a resolution to accept the $500 from Manvest to be assigned to the Benton War Memorial operating account. Are there any questions, any objections or changes? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept it as presented.
Second.
Okay, I believe the motion was by Vice Mayor McCarty and the second by Councilmember Stovall. All in favor, please signify by saying aye or waving or something. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gets a little tricky on the Zoom call. I guess that was okay, Jeremy. We're legal there. All right, with that, we'll move on to the awards and introductions, and I would like to turn the meeting over to Chief Drummond, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Thank you, town staff, for giving me the opportunity to speak and show you some highlights and introduce some new officers, promotions, and awards. I'll be talking, but you direct your attention over to M. Baker's account, and you'll see Mr. Brandon Settles sitting down. Brandon Settles is one of our newest team members. Brandon Settles is 26 years old, grew up in Bedford County. Brandon is a 2013 graduate of Stanton River High School. Brandon was first drawn to public service by becoming a volunteer firefighter in Roanoke County. Brandon continues to serve as a volunteer and has done so now for the past 5 years. Along with his passion for law enforcement, he enjoys his ability to serve and personally contribute to keeping his community in Roanoke safe and a great place to live. Brandon and his girlfriend Jacqueline reside in Roanoke County, and together they have 3 pets. Brandon would like to express his gratitude and truly honored to be a part of such an outstanding police department and a town. Brandon is currently in law enforcement training at Cardinal Criminal Justice Academy, and we anticipate that he will complete his first level of training in the spring. And everybody, Brandon Settles.
Welcome, Brandon.
Welcome, Brandon. Mr. Mayor, not to make Councilwoman McCarty mad, but can we vote somebody in as a police officer that went to Stanton River, or because they're not a terrier, or?
You know
Brandon,
what? Out of everything that he said about him, I wrote down here Stanton River High School graduate.
Right. I knew you did. Brandon, I'll tell you this, my family, my children, everything, there's 11 of us, and all of us graduated from William Byrd, except my wife. I've been married to her for 32 years, and of course she went to Stanton River, but welcome to the Benton Police Department.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We don't hold that against Sabrina, and we definitely won't hold it against you.
Right.
Yeah.
We look forward to having him. He is in week 2 of the academy, so this is just the beginning.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah, Brandon, you can tell, obviously you're going to get a lot of good training, but you're probably going to get some kidding around if you come to council meetings. So welcome to Benton.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief, sorry to interrupt there. But
No, that's okay. So the next will be a recognition award, and I'm waiting for the officer to step in the camera.
Oh, okay.
Next, we'll get to recognize something really cool, which is Officer Brandon Alterio was recognized for 40 under 40.
Yeah.
This year, our very own Officer Brandon Alterio was recognized by the Roanoker as an up-and-coming next wave of leaders in our valley. Applicants such as Officer Alterio are judged not only on character achievements, but also the ever-important community involvement. Brandon undoubtedly was recognized with such prize recognition. Brandon, who we all know was our 2020 Officer of the Year, has a passion for community service, both on the local level and national front. Brandon began his path towards community-oriented service during his service with the United States Air Force. And there he served multiple tours in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. After his service, Brandon, a Vinton native, continued his passion for service and enlisted in law enforcement profession and the education field. For those of you that may not be aware, Brandon extended his need to serve others by enrolling as a substitute teacher in Roanoke County school system on his days off from regular work. Brandon continues to let his passion to serve others be his driving force in public safety. While assigned to the patrol division, Brandon enjoys not only the core principles of law enforcement, but is genuinely passionate in connecting with the town of Vinton residents. Congratulations to Brandon on his incredible achievement of being recognized 40 under 40.
You bet. Congratulations, Brandon. That's quite an honor. You certainly deserve it. That's awesome. Way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Brandon.
Thank you.
You must have went to William Byrd.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Was the William
Good
Byrd
to know
graduate?
him.
I have to add that in
Yeah.
there. I'm actually going to keep Brandon here. Brandon is part of our up-and-coming corporals, our up-and-coming leadership. Officer Brandon Altieri began his service with the town of Vinton in 2019. He, of course, started his law enforcement career with the city of Salem, and we were blessed enough for him to come here and serve with us. Officer Altieri currently serves as an A platoon officer in the patrol division, where he'll be carrying out his duties as a corporal. Officer Altieri is currently pursuing his master's degree in criminal justice at Liberty University. And I'm pretty confident he's got one more class to go and he's all done there. So I'm sure he's pretty happy about that. Professionally, Officer Altieri is a general instructor for the Police Academy, has advanced certifications in vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle crash investigation and reconstruction, along with our newly promoted officers. We will serve our police department and the town as training officers for our new upcoming police officers such as Brandon Settles. So we're very proud not only to recognize them for 40 under 40, but as a new up and coming corporal for the Vinton Police Department in the town of Vinton.
Awesome. Awesome. Way to go.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You know, when they sit there like that with the Vinton police behind them, it's kind of like in a football game, you know, or after a football game, you just want to say, all right, Brandon, tell us how you feel right now that you just won the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you know, we were underdogs from the start, but you know, at least we're not the Patriots, I guess.
And just to add on there, Brandon is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so he's, you know, still recovering from the playoff loss.
You're gonna go
Right.
there. Did beat to it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Glad to hear all this. You certainly deserve some recognition. Way to go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm going to grab the other officer, which is Corporal Dustin Bray.
All right.
Officer Bray has been serving as a police officer with the town of Vinton since 2016. Officer Bray currently serves as B Platoon Patrol Division, where we'll be carrying out his new duties as a corporal. Officer Bray is a student as well at Liberty University and anticipates to complete his bachelor's degree in criminal justice in the spring. Professionally, Officer Bray has achieved specialized training in narcotics investigation, special weapons and tactics school, and interview interrogation. Officer Bray has also attended the nationally recognized Honor Guard Academy and currently serves in that capacity for the Vinton Police Department. We're very excited for Corporal Bray, excuse me, and I look forward to seeing his continued growth here with the Vinton Police Department in the town of Vinton.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
well.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Way to go.
Yeah, congratulations.
Some of them are camera shy, they leave very quickly. The next one is Detective DiCarlo, or Corporal DiCarlo. As the title indicates, Detective DiCarlo is currently assigned to criminal investigations. Like his fellow officers, Detective DiCarlo is a field training officer and will serve in that capacity as we look upon him to train our incoming officers. Officer DiCarlo has received training in critical components such as evidence technician, asset forfeiture, surveillance techniques, and forensic analysis. Detective DiCarlo has become an experienced detective and someone who is sought after for advice and help. Detective DiCarlo will continue to serve the police department and remain in criminal investigations, while he will also aid in training officers in advanced criminal investigations as part of the field training. Congratulations, each officer on their promotions. Their promotion is an absolute reflection of each of these officers' strong characters and their passion for public service. It's an absolute privilege of mine, and along with the department and the town, to be a witness to the growth of our future leaders. And of course, thank you to Brandon Settles to witness his law enforcement career at the beginning of what is a new chapter in his life. But everybody, Corporal Detective DiCarlo.
Congratulations, Dr.
Congratulations.
Perry.
Yeah, congratulations. Good work. Brandon.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time you've given me in the town and the Vinton Police Department in recognizing these future leaders. It's a true blessing to be able to witness these fine gentlemen continue to grow.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chief. And you're right. It's a true blessing to see all this advancement. And we are blessed. There's no other way to put it, to have such a great police department here in the town. So thank you guys for the job that you do every day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will move on to the next item. And Ann, I understand that you've got a certificate that you want to present this evening, right?
Yes, I do. I will put it up on the screen. Give me one
Awesome.
second. All right, so it's my pleasure to present to you tonight the Distinguished Budget Award from GFOA, that's the Government Finance Officers Association. We began applying for this 5 years ago, so this is our 5th application and the 5th time that we've been awarded. And we always get comments back from GFOA, and I think I told you in the past, they're consistently improving. So I'll scroll down here and just show you a sneak peek. When we first started, we had a lot of 1s and 2s, and then the next year it was 2s and 3s, and now 5 years into it, we're pretty far into the 3s and 4s. So it's pretty exciting seeing our progress throughout the past 5 years. I did want to say a big thank you to Pete and Susan and Brandon, who put a lot of time into this budget. Also, Donna in HR works with me on payroll, and then all of the department heads and all of the department admins. There's countless hours across all of the departments and what we put in. So I just want to say a big thank you because this isn't possible without them.
And thank you very much. And I think it really speaks well of our finance department and that we've received this award. I think you said 5 years now. That's awesome. And as you mentioned, certainly a team effort. But thank you for your leadership and in the finance department. They do a great job. Thanks. Okay, with that, we'll move on to citizen comments and petitions. Donna, have you received anything in the office since our last meeting?
No, Mayor, no request.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anything listed for the town attorney, but Jeremy, always good to see you and your sharp ties. And Pete's got a sharp tie on tonight too. Good to see you.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Speaking of sharp ties, we'll move on to the town manager section. Mr. Peters, it's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor Gross, members of council. I have 2 briefings for you this evening. The first will be presented by Ann Cantrell, the town's treasurer finance director, and this is an update on the meter and software utility projects that we're upfitting with a portion of it with CARES Act funding, and then there'll be some additional information provided on some debt service that we'll be issuing in the near future. Ms. Cantrell.
Thank you. So I have before you a brief timeline that I'm going to show you. We also have Dave Miller here with us from Core and Main. So after I walk through the timeline, I'm going to turn it over to him for a quick presentation. But we wanted to bring back in front of you, we did a rate study with Davenport and Company in 2019, and it was presented and council actually adopted the rate increase that was proposed in November of 2019. So quite a few things have happened since that date. We were concerned because one of our top 5 customers reduced their consumption by 80%. So we had great concerns on that. Then the pandemic started hitting in March and April, and we were very concerned because the schools are top users. So how would this impact school consumption? How would it impact business, residential consumption. There's a lot of question marks in the air that kind of made us pause and say, okay, we need to make sure that we really have the revenue to move forward on this before we get ourselves in trouble. So to move forward a little bit further, we started having telework capability potential with the CARES Act. So one of the eligible expenses was items that would improve an employer's ability to telework. Well, the meters were a great opportunity because our employees are actually out in the field. Sometimes they're actually being approached by customers when they're out in the field. And by going to a radio read system, it actually allows them to telework, work from home once we get that upgrade and complete. So we funded about $365,000 from the CARES Act to go ahead and get this project started. And you will see that February 2nd, that Davenport and Company was supposed to present, or they will present, on debt options for the town. So we've moved forward. We feel more comfortable with our revenue. We got a portion of the project accomplished with the CARES Act. So now we're looking at the remaining piece. How are we going to fund it? And they're going to come with a proposal to us on this is what we think the best option is for the town of Vinton. And then about the 1st of May, we should have all the funding from the debt and we can begin paying on that. Hopefully we can begin work a little bit sooner, but that's when a majority of the project can begin, when we have the funding. And then we hope to have the meter installation complete by the fall of 2021. And Dave hopefully can back me up on this. And at the same time, we are doing an ERP software upgrade. So this touches basically any process that the town does. This includes our utility billing software, which is IBM based, or AS400. So we're actually going to make a move to Tyler Munis software, which is a web-based software, and that should be complete by January of 2022. So let me end this share and I will turn it over to Dave Miller for his comments.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen as well. I have a couple of slides that I'll walk through as we go along and kind of shed a little bit more light as to where we are with the project. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. So yeah, what we wanted to talk a little bit about this evening is just the project overview, some of the parts and pieces that what's going to encompass the technology and the meter reading system that we are installing. And then we'll walk through the phases that we have that we're working through. Phase 1 being some of the CARES Act money that was mentioned that we were able to jumpstart and get some of the areas of the project underway, and then touch base on the remaining areas of the project in phase 2 that are to be completed. So just a little bit about Core & Main and who we are. We are a leading water and sewer and storm drain supplier who operates over 275 locations nationwide. Moreover, here in Roanoke, we've been serving Central and Southwest Virginia and the town of Vinton since 1984. And we have a project team dedicated specifically to this project, comprised of 6 individuals with over 170 years of collective experience in our industry, implementing these types of census systems all across the state. Additionally to that, our technology partner is Census. The company was founded in 1870 and became part of Rockwell International in 1972. Census has continually transformed the metering industry with their technology advancements over the last 30 years. Way back when, we used to read meters by walking down the street with a yellow pad and a pencil. We would flip the lid open, read the meter, and write it down. So starting in about 1985, they introduced some technology where we could connect a wire and an electronic register in that same pit, walk down the road, and get those readings with a handheld. And then in the early 90s, we got a little bit smarter even at that, and we started connecting radio transmitters to our meters and being able to read them with handhelds and being able to drive around in vehicles and collect those readings as well. Again, further, saving time, becoming more and more efficient as we do so. But in 2006, Census purchased some of their own primary license radio frequency and then moved their company headquarters to Raleigh in the Research Triangle, and now are a part of Xylem. And Xylem as a company's goal is to help their customers solve water through the power of technology and expertise. So Sensus is who they are and who they have become over the years, and then becoming part of the Xylem team, all focusing and working in and around bringing more and more technology to not only a water meter system, but to your water and sewer system as a whole. So just talking about what the system is, the slide that I have here kind of shows all of the parts and pieces of what we're going to be doing. So the new meters that we're going to be installing with the system would be in the red to the left. So we're going to be exchanging meters. We're going to be adding a radio transmitter to those meters. And then we're building our own wireless communication network throughout the town by adding data collector sites to some of your existing water tanks. Those meters with those radios are going to be able to talk over wireless RF to those water meter tank site collectors. And then from there, that water meter hourly reads, leak alerts, notifications are then communicated to our cloud-based software platform that is accessible by any PC, phone, or tablet that would have an internet connection. So to take that a step further, when we talk about the water tank collector sites, we identified that through a scientific radio frequency propagation analysis. So that's kind of a mouthful, but what we were able to do is with the primary license radio frequency that Sensus owns, it's a very quiet radio frequency, so there's not a lot of noise. So that enables us to speak more freely and pass our information from point A to point B, water meter to collector with ease. So this slide, albeit kind of busy in a lot of colors, the green area is the areas of which we can adequately receive information from the water meters. And then there are two kind of purple pinkish dots at about 7 o'clock and at about 3 o'clock on the map. That is the 3rd Street tank site and the Camney Lane water tank site. Those are going to be the two collector sites that we're going to, again, coming back to this diagram, that are going to be responsible for communicating to the approximately 4,500 to 5,000 water meters. So again, with that, information passes from meters to collector site, and then again back to our cloud-based operating software system. And with that system, we're going to have this FlexNet software that's going to be talking to the CIS software that Ms. Ann spoke about. And then also, while those pieces of software are going to integrate and speak to one another, we're also going to be out into the field exchanging meters route by route, book by book, not to interrupt your normal courses of business and meter reading cycles. While doing that, we're going to install those meters and capture those meter exchange information electronically as well. So that at that point, we will be able to seamlessly transition and integrate the new meter data and the old meter data back to your systems. Again, not bogging down and not interfering with your existing reading and billing and customer service systems that you have in place. As those meters are replaced, as the system continues to grow, again, then we'll be able to log in, look up specific customer information, and be able to see a variety of things from data to hourly usage to leak alerts, a lot of information that enables us to become much more proactive rather than reactive from a water system and a customer service department. So as where we are now, in phase 1, again, we talked about having some CARES funds that were applied to the project and were able to kind of give us a jump start to what we have been working on up until this time. So just to walk through some of those items, we have been completing large meter installation site interviews. So any of the water meters that are of 1.5 inches and larger for some of your larger commercial use businesses, we have been visiting each one of those sites one by one, identifying the parts and the pieces and the labor needed installation, so that again, we're having as minimal as impact as possible when we're out there and exchanging those meters throughout your with your customers and interfacing with your customers. In addition to that, with those CARES funds, we were able to purchase close to 900 water meters and 1,900 of the meter transmitters for the project, and those are in storage with the town as we speak. Additionally, We were able to complete some meter installations. We were able to install 17 locations, ranging in sizes from a 5/8 inch meter all the way up to a 4-inch commercial meter. So we were able to go ahead and vet and test and integrate some of our processes that will definitely be a time savings as we roll into phase 2 of the project. Again, integrating those systems, I'm integrating our installation processes, that electronic data capturing and pushing that data back to your utility billing software. We have done that for those 17 locations, and again, being able to test and foolproof that as we go along. In addition to the propagation analysis that we showed a couple of slides ago, to be able to prove out and know what our coverage areas are and know that we're going to be able to provide a communications network to the town's footprint by utilizing the 3rd Street water tank and the Camney Lane water. Any questions thus far? Okay, good. So phase 2 remaining work that we have, we do have a few more large meter commercial business sites that we need to visit and develop those worksheets for those as well. Once we get started again, we will build out and commission the 2 collector sites at 3rd Street and Camney Lane. And then as we get the communication network up, more meters communicating, we will integrate the census software that will speak to billing to provide the hourly meter reads, leak information, and ultimately pass our bill files back between ACS Financial. We've also developed and passed back and forth some public outreach information, customer notifications, frequently asked questions, things to put on websites, send out in ahead of mailers and bills, just letting the public and your customers know what to expect when we begin installation and exchanging of the water meters. Again, and then the remaining meters and transmitters installed route by route, book by book, not to interfere and minimally impact the existing reading and billing systems of the town. And then lastly, we will have some new systems and new software that we have. So we have a schedule and a series of training sessions set up at the town as well to walk through all of the new systems, parts, and pieces that we'll have available for the town to use. So having said that, I talked a lot and kind of went kind of quick, but just want to say thank you for having me. Again, thank you for the opportunity to serve the town. And we really look forward to working with you and getting the project up and running. Thank you again.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Miller. We certainly appreciate you being here tonight. It's a good presentation. We appreciate all the information.
Yeah, as soon as I figure out how to stop sharing my screen, I'll give you your meeting back. Okay, I think I'm good. But again, thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Oh, goodness.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Ann, for that presentation. And Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I will proceed to the next briefing, which is it's a proposed ordinance amendment on our town code. And I will actually allow or ask our principal planner, Nathan McClung, to provide this briefing.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening, Mayor, member of council. Today I'm going to be briefing on an ordinance change specifically to the code enforcement sections that deal with grass and also deal with the storage and accumulation of trash and garbage. I have a PowerPoint to assist with this conversation. So there were some small changes to this ordinance section that has to deal with the definitions. The addition of definitions to make things more clear about what is things that are pretty broad, like what is trash, what are weeds, what is an occupant, what is an owner, and that's in the first section. One thing to keep in mind with the definitions in this, specifically in this ordinance, is about the word weed or weeds. So even though it's a broad term, we think of weeds, we think of like dandelions and other noxious plants, but in this case, for the definitions, for the sake of just this ordinance, Grass is also a weed if it's above that 12-inch level. So anything above 12 inches, whether it be grass or some other form of vegetation, would be a weed. Things that are excluded from this are trees, natural woodland areas, maintained gardens, and of course, ornamental shrubbery. Took this opportunity for the during the process of making this ordinance, because this ordinance has been in the process for over a year now, with different pieces being brought in and brought out. At the time, it was just beneficial to go ahead and add noxious weed sections. These are already banned by the Virginia State Code, so went ahead and included these in the town ordinance. And you may have seen these noxious weeds before. There's a long list right there in front of you. One prime example that you see mostly in our region would be the tree of heaven. You can see the picture right there. It's some people think growing up called it a peanut butter tree. I didn't call it that growing up, but I've heard that from some of our officers. But yeah, there's a list of noxious weeds. But getting to the actual important components of this ordinance, besides definitions and terminology, the biggest thing that this ordinance revision would allow for, or one of the two biggest things it would allow for, is first, it would allow our community resource officer or any acting town official in the code enforcement realm to charge either the owner or the occupant. Previously, all code enforcement enforcement tasks and fines and criminal action or civil action went against the property owner, and that was really the only way, regardless if it was a tenant that was responsible or someone else that had done something on the property. Really what happening was it was falling on the property owner. So this would allow for our code enforcement official to press a charge against the occupant or the owner. And as you can see in the definition section, occupant is anyone who's over the age of 18 who resides or operates a business and who has possession and control of the property. So a leasehold and an interest in a property would mean that you have possession or control of the property at the time. The reason for this and the major hurdles to enforcement presently are negative landlord-tenant relationships, out-of-state property owners, and also absentee landlords and property management companies. So, for example, you have issues sometimes where it's in their lease agreement that the tenant's responsible for cutting grass, but then the grass gets repetitively tall throughout the year. The way the ordinance is currently set up, if the town had to send a contractor out there and build the property, which eventually becomes a lien if not paid, that would fall against the property owner. And there's also other examples of this. And keep in mind, this ordinance is talking about overgrown grass and weeds and outdoor storage of trash. It's not talking about inoperable vehicles, but it's something we could explore in the future. And then going beyond just the owner-occupant option and giving the town the option to charge either owner-occupant, it would also introduce a civil penalty system, which would allow for us to impose fines for these types of violations of the town code. And just to give an overview of what currently happens is there's a violation present on the property. They get notified usually with one letter, and one letter per season for grass. But if it's trash, sometimes they get a notice after that first initial warning that they're in violation. Usually it gets brought into compliance, but sometimes you have cases where it's not compliant. And since there's no fine system, really the only avenue is court, which is a timely process. And most of the time what happens is that if there's any form of progress over the course of like a month, and the case will get continued, and you'll have something as simple as grass or outdoor accumulation of trash being held up in the court process for months on end, or even years. And then hopefully at the end of that court process, compliance is met. With this proposed process, you'd have a violation, a notification, and if they're still non-compliant, then you can impose the civil penalties. $50 for the first offense, and then every other offense after that, within a year would be $200. At no point in time in a year period will someone be charged more than $3,000. Hopefully, these fines never even have to be used, but it does give more teeth to these sections of our town code. And ultimately, the goal is compliance, and there still is a safety valve built in that if court hearing does need to occur. And then finally, there's another provision added that has to deal with these the common sense wooded areas in the town when you're dealing with large swaths of land that are more than a couple acres. Of course, in those cases, most of them would be naturally wooded areas, but with this, there's another safety valve built into this ordinance that would allow for a large property that's more than an acre, naturally growing vegetation, which isn't planted by someone or maintained by someone, as long as it's maintained within 50 feet from every property line, then it wouldn't constitute a violation of this article. There's very few spots in town that meet this category, but this does provide for the case when that does happen. So that's the presentation. I want to go back to this slide as we keep going here, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, Nathan, to me, this sounds great. I'm very impressed by several aspects of this. First of all, I certainly want to thank you, and I understand there was a whole team of folks that worked on this, Sergeant Caldwell, and probably our attorney, but so thank you guys, because this is, to me, is a big improvement. One of the continuing problems we've had over the years is the fact that by the time we take someone to court, either they've corrected the situation or it's, like you said, it's continued and it's gotten really old and really bad. So yeah, this sounds good. To me, it sounds like the crux of the matter is that we're involved with the occupant rather than just the owner. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jeremy was able to find a provision in the state code that allowed towns to have that option, because I don't believe counties would have that option. So we're fortunate to be a town or city which would allow for that to occur.
Awesome. Council, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'll just have a comment. Yeah, I like this as well as far as maintaining property, especially, I know it's tough with rental properties and things. Kind of a funny story that happened to my aunt. My aunt's 90 years old, and a few years ago, she owns a piece of property on Bennington, right near the river, over, I guess it's 13th Street or over that way. And the city mowed it in November it's just a blank, a vacant piece of property, nothing on it. And sent her a bill in February for $250 to mow it. And it's just like a quarter of an acre. So my aunt, you'd have to know my aunt, she planted everything that she needed to plant on it. She did some research about how close it was to the river with the water table, put everything that she needed to put onto it to make it a wildlife habitat, and got it certified in Richmond. And now the city can't touch it and she don't have to mow it.
I think that's fabulous.
You're giving people ideas, Keith.
Good for her.
Wildlife.
Good for her.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man. So Keith, your backyard's not going to become a wildlife habitat, is it?
No, but hers is.
Oh, man. Good job, guys. So seriously, good job. What do you
Yes, I will also thank Nathan for his work. He worked very hard with our attorney and our code enforcement officer, Mike Caldwell. I think these are going to be very helpful amendments and allow us to do some good work in the town. So thank you for the staff for all you've done on this project.
And I'm just going to add real quick, Nathan, I'm getting ready to respond to the one question you had. You'll get that from me here pretty shortly. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, Mayor Gross, I will proceed into the items requiring action. We have 4 this evening, if I'm not mistaken.
All
The
right.
first being a very similar thing that we just heard from Nathan, and this is some amendments to our solid waste ordinance, in particular, section 7816 of Article 1 and 7843 of Article 3. And if I may, at first, I'll just kind of talk in generalities of why we wanted to make these changes, and I'll go into some specifics. As you know, it's been about 1.5 years since we substantially changed our solid waste ordinance. Most identifiable change to the average citizen was the use of town-provided refuse carts. However, over time, over this first 1.5 years, we have noticed some themes developed and some tweaks that we needed to make. And that time has finally come where we feel we have enough information to make these modifications. We've worked with several citizens. We worked with members of our Public Works Committee, as well as our Public Works staff, both admin and the service delivery team who actually collect the refuse. And so we feel like we've made some revisions that will help us provide a good service to the citizens and something that they can better understand and comprehend, and we're not leaving so much to chance. So if I may, I'll talk about a couple of the specific revisions. First, this is in section 7816, item B. We're proposing revisions to provide the police department to be able to maintain the enforcement of the cigarette butt rule. And this is essentially anything that is tossed outside of a vehicle, including newspapers, flyers, food containers, et cetera. When we made some revisions to the solid waste ordinance, we weren't clear on this provision, so we wanted to make sure that we had this included in there to allow our police department to continue to enforce this. The second item was D under 7816, and this is just a very minor grammatical edit to replace the word arrest with citation. Item F specifies identifying a civil penalty of $50 as opposed to a class 1 misdemeanor. So this allows us to, it's kind of similar to writing a parking ticket as opposed to taking the item to court. Item G states that if the civil penalty is not paid within 14 days, then it may be referred to general district court. So much as what Nathan suggested in his last presentation, this adds that next or middle step so that we hope we can resolve this issue of the violation with the resident kind of more in-house as opposed to tying it up into the court system. And then finally, under 7816 is item H, which is another just small addition of adding the use of trash receptacles in addition to landfills. You'll scroll down my page here. Got a lot going on my screen, so there we go. These next edits fall under section 7843, which is the penalties for noncompliance. This section, in essence, what we've done is there were 3 notifications of violation. And so we kind of refined that a little bit. So your first violation, the citizen will receive a tag to notifying them that they have had a violation of the refuse ordinance. The second violation, again, they receive a tag. And the third violation, they receive the tag, but in addition, they will receive a visit from a code enforcement officer. And how this is triggered is each of those violations, those tags are duplicates. And so those duplicate tags will be sent back to the admin team, and they will keep a running check of those. And once we reach that third violation, that's when it triggers a visit from a code enforcement officer. So these tags have been updated to kind of illustrate and communicate better to our residents what the violation has occurred, so that when they receive that violation, you know, they had some comprehension of what took place and why they received that violation tag. And then when that third visit happens with the code enforcement officer, obviously we're hoping there can be an actual physical dialogue amongst one of our members of our staff with the resident and explain that there has been a history and a pattern that's developed, that we've tried to communicate the violations, and that provide notice that on the fourth violation or any subsequent violation after that, that would, violation would accompany with a a $50 civil penalty. And so we're hoping that we can obviously take care of this violations with the tags, but that next step of adding that civil penalty is what we're adding under that section. Specifically, section 7843, item 4 is again adding that fourth step of the code enforcement officer to make that personal visit and issue that civil penalty. Section 5 specifies that it is a $50 civil penalty and for all additional violations. And then item 6, it specifies 14 days to pay the penalty in order to avoid being referred to the court. And it removes the reference to a class 4 misdemeanor. So again, kind of very similar to what Nathan was doing with the other ordinance. We're trying to follow suit with our refuse collection. And let's see if I can get back to the main screen here. And we did take this item to our Public Works Committee last week on January 13th, and the committee has recommended that council consider these amendments. The refuse team has started implementing this new tag procedure as a means to start enforcement, or at least communicate to the citizens what violations have occurred. These tags include items such as contact information with the Public Works Office. It gives them additional ideas or suggestions to correct the violations, such as they have an opportunity to rent an additional cart, or they have 12 free visits to the Hollins transfer station. So if they are cleaning out a basement or attic, and it won't fit in the typical weekly cart collection, that they do have other means to remove the refuse. And by allowing up to 3 violations for each household, we're giving some forgiveness there if someone was to make a casual mistake by forgetting to put their cart down, or just have an excessive amount of trash on a rare occasion. So we feel like this is a more forgiving program, but still enforces our goals of keeping the town clean and tidy throughout our neighborhoods and commercial districts. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have on the item, but I would respectfully request council to consider a motion to adopt these ordinance provisions. Thank you.
Okay, Pete, thank you a lot. Council, you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, Pete, I know we talked about this in Public Works on the 13th, like you mentioned. This is the one that we said that those would reset every year, correct? Was this the ordinance that we were talking about was going to reset?
Yes, sir. We're attempting to give the citizens an opportunity to have some forgiveness throughout the year, but not hold them accountable for forever. That we would give them some future discrepancies.
Now, by the way, Pete, these ordinances, not just this one, but all of our ordinances are on the town website for our citizens to view it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay.
And we have specific information that is highlighted within the website on our refuse collection services. So, it is a little bit daunting to go read the code. So we have tried to simplify it slightly and put that information where it's easily accessible on the website, but also we include that information on our town calendar annually.
Okay, great. Okay, Council, you have before you an ordinance as Pete described that would make the changes in our solid waste ordinance. Actually, the town code. So is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Mullins and a second by Councilmember Lyles. Any other questions or comments? Susan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyles,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes, thank you very much. Ordinance passes.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Gross. The second item I have this evening is a consideration of a resolution that would oppose recent boating access of fees that were implemented for the Department of Wildlife Resources. So I do want to say this is a law that took effect January 1st. So by passing this resolution doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to affect or change the outcome of this law. But we have talked with a number of our local legislators, and they are reconsidering making some tweaks to this. So this resolution will hopefully just support that we agree that it might need another look at, and to receive some feedback from the citizens and the stakeholder groups associated with recreational paddling in the state, and particularly in our area. I'll go through a few of these items. Again, this was passed as a part of a special session of the General Assembly this fall. And so it was not a lot of discussion amongst the citizens, the user groups, the stakeholder groups that utilize these access points. So it was kind of a surprise to everyone when the notifications started going out to the residents and paddlers in general about these new fees being put in place. So in essence, anyone that possesses a motorized boat license, a fishing license, or hunting license, and there's a number of other permits and licenses that are pretty typical of outdoor users, those folks would already be exempt, so that you wouldn't have to get this additional boating access permit. But those who don't have the hunting license, a fishing license, or a boating license, this is a fee that you would have to use or pay to get a permit to use a public water access on a lake or a river or a stream that is either owned and or managed by Department of Wildlife Resources, formerly DGIF, Department of the Game and Inland Fisheries. So there's a number of concerns that the average citizen and recreational paddler has about this fee. One, it is targeted toward recreational paddlers, which often tend to be families looking for affordable or free recreational opportunities, which have typically always been free to access public waterways for non-motorized vehicles. And avid anglers, experienced paddlers will typically already have these other licenses that would allow them to be exempt from this permit fee. So this is very targeted toward a specific user group. The permit process seems to be fairly confusing to the average user. So, for an example, what is a DWR, a controlled access point? For example, I'll use Tinker Creek in Benton. That is an access point that is owned and operated by the town of Benton, but it is still listed on DWR's website as a public access. So for the average citizen who may not know who operates that public access, they may go to DWR's website to find out where they can get on the river, and they may be confused about whether they need a permit to use Tinker Creek or not. And so this is replicated at a number of different access points throughout our area, but in the greater region as well. There was also really little outreach to either local landowners who operate or landowners of public access sites, in particular those who have water trails or blueway operations. For example, the Roanoke River Blueway or the Upper James River Water Trail. And so there are operators that own these properties, there are outfitters that take trips on these properties, and really no one was consulted about what the impacts on their businesses would be, both financially and operationally, to incorporate these new permitting procedures for recreational paddlers. And then another provision is it really doesn't specify where the funding that is being allocated or generated by these permits will be allocated. And so in particular, if a very prevalent access point is generating a considerable amount of revenue, there's no guarantee that those funds collected at that site or on that waterway will be put back into improving access for that site or that waterway. So there's no guarantee it's going to be put back into that project period. So there's obviously, if you pay a user fee to state park, you have some assurances that those fees are going back into maintaining that state park. This has not necessarily been set up that way for boating access. And they're all also is concerned that there are a lot of work has been done around the region and the state to try to divert folks from trespassing on private property to access rivers and streams. So a lot of new access points have been created, and there's a fear that these new fees will encourage folks to avoid publicly managed access points and go back to trespassing on property. And that leads to a number of issues with private property and parking and all sorts. So as you can see, there are a number of issues that we feel have resulted from this new legislation. There's no guarantee that by passing a resolution, we're going to influence our legislators, but we're hoping that they will take note. There are a number of other public localities taking action in a similar measure in hopes that our legislation will reconsider and make some tweaks to this new law. So hopefully I've adequately explained that, but if not, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And we do have a resolution, would ask for your consideration of if it pleases the council. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pete, for that explanation. Council, you have any comments or any questions for Pete?
I do, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Peters, so I guess what you're saying is that even though we don't want people charged, or we don't want people to have to pay the fee, or people take the responsibility of being charged by I say DGIF because I've said it for years. They can control our landing.
No,
With the
they would not be enforcing the town of Vinton's boating access. But it would be confusing to the average citizen, may not know the difference between a town operated or managed access versus a DWR access. While there are signs, for example, if you go to the Hardy Road, Smith Mountain Lake access, there are adequate signs there. So when you arrive to one that is a DWR access, it's pretty noticeable. But if you were to go to one that's not, you may be confused whether or not you need a permit to use that site or not. And if you go to DWR's website, for example, it would list a Tinker Creek. So you may think that you're required to have a permit in that case. So there's a lot of kind of variables there, and there are a number of cases or examples around different blueways and waterways that ownership operation is inconsistent. There are places where private property owners own the site, but DWR operate it. There are outfitters that operate certain access points. There are public governments, local governments that operate certain access points. So there's a wide range. VDOT owns a bunch of public access points, but others manage the site for them. So it's very confusing. And also, if you do attend visit a site and you then determine you don't have a permit, it can be very difficult for you to then acquire one, particularly in a remote area. If you don't have good, a lot of people have cell phones at this point, but if you don't have a good internet connection on your cell, in that case, you wouldn't be able to get your permit on the site. And so that can be, problematic for someone who's planned this outing, but didn't realize they needed it until they got to the access point itself.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Anything
Thank
else? Okay. Okay, council, you have before you a resolution which would oppose the boat landing access fees as described by the town manager. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution opposing the boat landing access fees.
Okay,
I'll
I'll
second.
second. Oh, sorry.
all right.
Take beauty over age. Go ahead.
Every time, man. So the motion was by Councilmember Lyles and the second was by Councilmember Mullins. Any other questions or any further discussion? If not, Susan, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lyles,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes, resolution passes. Thank you, council. Pete, back to you, sir.
All right. The next item requiring action is the consideration of a resolution to allowing the town treasurer finance director to remove outstanding personal property delinquent taxes and vehicle licensing fees over 5 years. And I will allow Ms. Ann Cantrell to present this item.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So before you have a resolution which would allow us to write off the outstanding personal property tax and vehicle license fees for 2015. This is something we're required to do by state code. So the state does not allow us to collect the property taxes after 5 years. Thankfully, we only write off a very small portion of our tax. So this year we're writing off $5,005 of personal property tax. And when you actually look at what was billed, that's a 99.02% collection rate. And then the vehicle license fee, this is something that replaced the decal several years ago. This is a little bit more difficult to collect than the tax. There's actually $14,260 to be written off for 2015, but this is still a 91.57% collection rate for 2015. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and staff would recommend approval of the resolution.
Okay, folks, any questions, comments? If not, council, you have before your resolution that would authorize the write-off as Ann has described. By the way, those sound like great percentages, Ann, so congratulations on that. So is there a motion for approval of the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor McCarty, a second by Councilmember Lyles. Any further discussion or questions? If not, Susan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyles,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall,
He may have had to step away.
it may have, Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes, resolution passes.
Okay, and we'll stick with that theme and allow Ann, if you wouldn't mind, to present the next item on outstanding water and sewer delinquent bills.
Yes, so at the same time that we do the tax write-off, we normally bring before you the water write-off as well. Now, this is not required by state code. It is recommended by our auditors so that we don't have an unrealistic accounts receivable balance on the books. So this year, we are requesting to write off the 2015 water bills that we've attempted to collect over the last 5 years. It is $14,260.79. This is one that I love to bring before you because it's the best collection rate of all. We billed out $3.4 million for 2015. So if you do the math, it's a 99.59% collection rate.
Wow.
So we would respectfully ask if you could allow us to write off the 14,000 and then we'll start tackling 2016.
Only if you promise to improve that percentage next time.
My best.
Talk about going for perfection, right? That's a great percentage rate. So we want to congratulate you on that. And you guys do a great job in the finance department on those collections.
Yeah.
So,
I'll say that too, but then I'll also say that on the flip side of that, we've got some really good citizens and some really good water customers as well. So
yeah.
It's easy to send the bill and try to collect it, but it's, paying consistently and keeping them up, especially in this time as well. I know this is from 2015, but it's going to be interesting to see 5 years from now what this year looks like.
Yeah.
Good point. That's a very good point, Keith. Most people do pay their bills, and we're thankful for that. I think the finance department does have to make an effort on occasion, but that's a good point, Keith. Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? All right, Council, you have before your resolution that would authorize the write-off as Ann has described. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor McCarty and a second, I think that was Councilmember Mullins. Any further discussion, questions? If not, Susan, if you would call the roll.
Councilmember Laws,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes. Resolution passes. Back to you.
I might just comment that Councilmember Stovall had told us that it may be necessary for him to leave the meeting, so I
Yes.
documented that.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
Mhm.
Okay, I have just a few announcements and a couple of updates for council. Wanted to recognize and welcome Our Daily Bread as our newest downtown business. They opened for business today and had a ribbon cutting. The chamber held the ribbon cutting, so it was nice. It was a great turnout. I was very pleased with the traffic in the new location, and it smelled incredible. So everyone run out and give it a shot. Joe Good Pies, which will be opening at Vineyard Station. I spoke to the owner earlier today, and he has confirmed a January 28th opening. So we'll try this again next week, it looks like, and opening a new restaurant in the downtown area. I also wanted to just highlight, the council should have received an invitation from Susan regarding our February 19th council retreat. So just wanted to make sure that was on your agenda. We will plan a half-day retreat that afternoon. We have several items on the agenda. We will review our upcoming budget preparation. We'll discuss both the FY22 capital improvement plan, but also some opportunity for some current year funds being allocated toward immediate CIP items, including traffic signals. And we'll talk about our strategic plan update. Last council retreat last February, council created this vision for the town, and you adopted that plan in July of 2020. And so I want to provide council to retreat an update on what we've accomplished to date on that 5-year plan. All right, and so I have a couple of updates I'd like to provide. These are just quick slideshows. I had reviewed these items with Mayor Gross, and he thought that would make a really nice update to full council. The first being an update on our Public Works fleet. And if I can find the right presentation, I will share my screen. All right. So much as we did with the police department, Public Works is in the process of updating 13 crew vehicles. So these are the smaller pickups, 1,500 and 2,500 sized vehicles that actually transport the crews to the job sites to conduct their daily tasks. So we are leasing these vehicles, a new replacement plan to lease these vehicles with Enterprise. And in some cases, this will actually include both snow plows and toolboxes where applicable. I wanted to mention that specific job vehicles such as the refuse truck, we've updated recently, the sweeper, the knuckle boom truck, and a few of our utility dump trucks. We have replaced those through CIP over the last few years. And there's a couple of pieces of equipment that yet still need to be replaced, but these type of vehicles, the larger, more job-specific vehicles, are not a part of this lease option. The reason we're able to do this is we have typically purchased vehicles, and we pay the annual payment to buy these vehicles. But for the purchasing power of the Enterprise program, particularly with the resale pickups in the current market, we're having an incredible opportunity to update our entire fleet one fell swoop. And actually, we are planning to turn our Public Works fleet over annually, or probably more 15, 18-month time frame, because of the incredible resale value. When Enterprise purchases them at a low cost, we can use them for a year and then they resell them. And they're, in most cases, they're making more than they originally paid for them. And so we capitalize on that equity that we can then roll over into future years and keep our costs very fixed, which we like. And it also helps us with our ongoing maintenance expenses, keeping those down and manageable. So having an updated fleet is certainly good for our employees' morale, It's good for keeping them on the job site and not taking them to the garage. And it just lowers our overall expenses. So this is a great opportunity for us to update that fleet. And as far as our old vehicles, the ones that we own or the ones that we have not yet paid off, once we trade those in on the leased vehicles, that equity will also be rolled into the lease program. There are 2 current public works vehicles that will not be sold or transferred into the lease. This is 2 Durango SUVs that we're leasing, and one of those will be moved into admin for the assistant town manager position, who will be overseeing public works. So there is a need for a vehicle there. And then we're putting one of the community programs because we do a lot of travel around the town, setting up for events and representing the town in various capacities. So we felt like there was a really good opportunity to provide a vehicle specifically for that program. And then we still maintain 2 Ford Escapes, one for the planning and zoning office. I believe it's got 63,000 miles on it. And then there was one that was used by the fire department, and we're putting that into admin as a pool vehicle. So if the finance office needs to run, somewhere in Roanoke or Salem, or someone else in the admin office needs to make some visits, we have a vehicle, or even planning and zoning if they need an extra vehicle to do code enforcement. I didn't mean to stop that slide. Here is a kind of a listing of what outgoing vehicles that we're transitioning out. So some of those are a little bit newer than you might think, but several of them, we got several in the mid 2000s that have over 75,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 80, 70. Then there's another series in the 50s, 80s, 80s. And then there's another round of more newer vehicles. But again, we're going to get much better fair equity in those once we trade them into the new lease program. And then what we have incoming, I just made a brief listing there of what we're getting. 7 GMCs of various sizes, looks like 4 large Ram pickups, and then a couple of F-150s. And we signed this lease agreement in December, and at that point, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 months before delivery, depending on when they roll off the assembly line and get set up for our specific job functions. But as we did with police, those will start filtering in the system over the next couple of months, and we'll roll out the outgoing vehicles at the same time. So any questions on the fleet update to this point? And I think we have accomplished just about all of the police department as well. I think we might have a couple yet to go, but again, I think this is a really good thing for our employees to give them nice equipment, and it represents the town well. And again, hopefully in theory, reduces our expenses as well. And big thanks to Ann and her team for actually coming up with this. It was something that Ann and Barry worked on with originally the police department. And Chief Drummond, Captain Drummond at the time, I know he had a lot of input in this. So quite the team effort, and we're just taking that next level to get it implemented into the Public Works office. And the next item, I have some updates on the municipal building. These are as a result of the CARES Act. So thank you to Donna and Amanda for putting this presentation together. At the future council meeting, I'll provide updates on other building improvements, but tonight I'll concentrate specifically on the municipal building. And so again, these are the result of CARES Act and eligible funding that we could either provide for teleworking, we could make our workspaces better for our employees and safer for the citizens. And so you'll see some of the updates that we've made in the lobby, the break room, outside seating area, council chambers, the flooring, and then finally in the police department. So this is you come into the building. This is previously the information center. Those 2 photos there in the middle. That's what it looked like at one point. And we have enclosed that in to provide some much needed storage area. And we relocated the information boxes there that you see on the right. And we put some nice lettering on the wall to welcome our customers and make the space look intentional. In our break room, this is in the admin suite. We're also making some updates in the finance office. They have their own small break room. But this photo here, this slide here specifically represents what we've done in the admin break room. And the photos on the left is what it previously looked like. Probably original cabinetry, flooring, traditional fridge. But what we've done is updated the space with materials that are easy to clean. We have touchless faucets. We have a touchless water dispenser and ice dispenser, so we can reduce those touching points. We've moved our mailroom into this space. You'll see the copier and the mail slots there, and we've created also a nice little break room to have your lunch. So the last photo there on the right, and again, these are all, you'll see the flooring has changed, the counter surface has changed, and a lot of touchless equipment so that we can reduce those touching points throughout this trafficked area of employees. The outdoor seating area, this was utilizing, making a space for our citizens to perhaps meet with our staff when necessary. There provides a nice outdoor space for us to have a table to sit and review site plans if necessary, but also just an inviting place for citizens to hopefully relax and as they're waiting for the bus or having lunch from our neighboring restaurants. This is the one I know you're all eager to see in person. This is the update for the council chambers. So you see a photo of the previous space on the left and what we've done on the right. So this includes the flooring, which is much easier to clean and removes those original chairs. Replaces them with, again, materials that we can easier clean and disinfect. And that goes for both the citizen chairs as well as council's chairs. We put up new wallpaper, and quite a transformation of that space. This picture surely doesn't do it justice. Updated lights and ceiling tiles. So pretty much that entire room, other than the wood paneling, has gotten updates. Some of our flooring and accessibility improvements. On the left there, you'll see some motion activated sensors we've installed on the front and rear doors. This allows those who, for ADA accessibility, to utilize these motion activated doors to enter into the space, but also provides for a touchless entry for our employees. And you'll see in the middle there what the carpets look like previously. And again, we've updated those throughout the building to provide a more sanitary surface for cleaning for both the employees and the citizens visiting us. And finally, and I may ask Chief Drummond if he wouldn't mind providing some updates on this. Chief, would you mind highlighting some of the improvements you've made in your space?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Peters. So the pictures on the left you see is the hallway. The hallway stairs leads up to the council chambers. Those steps have been changed. They pretty much made it aesthetically pleasing and changed the color patterns so it matches more with the building, and it continues to flow better with the blacks and the grays and the lighter colors. As you transition towards the hallway, the flooring was done from its traditional, I guess it was tile, I can't remember anymore, but it's now the more wood looks similar to the council chambers and in the hallway. The center picture you'll see was actually the chief's office. So that was where the previous chiefs were housed, and now that is the sergeant's office. And this was better, an attempt to better utilize the space. And that within that picture, you can't see it, but there was a small bathroom in there that really wasn't being utilized. And we converted that into storage where officers can store their files and some critical equipment. So there's a little bit better security as far as the sergeant's office goes. On the right, you'll see on the bottom is with the wood paneling is the old evidence room, and on the top is the updated version. We've updated the refrigerator, which houses some items of evidence that goes to the Department of Forensic Science. Of course, the countertops and lights and everything was updated. This serves a very critical component as far as evidence handling and protection of our evidence and transitioning it over to the evidence lockers. So this was a huge update, something that came out really good, and the officers really do appreciate it. Next slide, sir.
I think that is all. Thank you, Chief. So we certainly didn't cover all the updates, but just want to give you a brief highlight of some of the improvements. Really look forward to one day getting you all back into the space, and we'll take an appropriate walking tour of all the updates. But do want to appreciate council support to utilize these funds for these improvements. We have made some nice spaces for our employees, and I've heard from them that they appreciate those improvements. But it's also provided a safer working environment for our staff, given the COVID circumstance, and for our citizens who are coming to do business with us. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on that, but we'll be hopefully showing you guys around in person one day soon.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's for sure. So, Pete, I want to make sure I understand then those improvements were all funded, or at least the majority of it, by the COVID funds. Is that right?
For the most part, there were a few administrative funds that we reappropriated undesignated funds towards some of the non-CARES Act eligible items. And then also the police department used some of their asset forfeiture funds to do some of the improvements. So it's been a combination, by and large, all COVID funds, but there certainly were some other management funds that were reallocated to fill in the gaps. And I did want to note, I did miss something on the slide. One of the more substantial upgrades we've done is in the finance office. We've relocated some of the service workers kind of up front that service our customers at the front desk or the drive-through. And so they've been reoriented, and it makes a much more open and separated space, but also more convenient so they can service a customer at the front window and not have to get up to do so. So we had them it was kind of a something you might see in a bank, and they had their own desk, and they would get up from the desk to go to the front desk to greet the customer. Now they can all do that seamless from the same spot. And then something that's really substantially improved is the drive-through itself. And so that entire window has been changed out. It's a new intercom system, a new awning, a new open for service light. And so we've gotten, Ann and her team have gotten a lot of great compliments on the convenience of the new drive-through window. It's the right height. We've cut out the concrete so the cars should get a little closer to the building. They don't have to lean out their vehicles quite as much to access. So quite a bit of improvement there. You take all those updates along with our teleworking improvements with both financial, with doing other things online, laptops that we can telework. And so we've really pivoted over the last 8 to 10 months to be able to provide a lot more service to our residents than we ever have before, without them necessarily having to come into the building to do it. So, and it's made it for a nice working environment, but also ultimately provide good services to our citizens.
Yeah, great. That sounds great. Like I said, we certainly want to improve the services to our citizens. And I think all these improvements will help that, as well as a good working environment. And it looks good. It really looks good. As you mentioned, most of it, at least a large portion, come from the COVID funds. And while I think it's important to recognize the fact that all these improvements will help with safety and convenience and the working environments, I think it's worth noting that that's a program that a government program that worked. I mean, that put funds back into the economy. I mean, obviously we had to buy that material. We had to employ contractors to install it and everything. So I was quite impressed by first of all, the improvements to the building, but the fact that that program did, in fact, stimulate the economy, which is what it was designed to do. So I just think it's important to point out when a government program does work so well. So
and Mayor, I can't thank the staff enough. Everyone has just jumped in with both feet and helped with all the different nuances of these improvements. So it's been quite quite the update, but quite the experience and challenge in some cases to make all this work. But no one's complained. Everyone's had a good smile on their face, and now that we're starting to see the results, it's really rewarding to see the updates.
Awesome. Good to hear. Okay.
That is all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for all those updates. And with that, we'll move on to the reports from our council committees. I see we have a finance report. So, Ann, I guess it's all yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here.
Okay.
Make sure that this is moved over. Okay. All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Great. So we had several items on our agenda at the last meeting. We had the budget resolution for the CARES Act above that we passed tonight. We did the War Memorial Veterans donation, the facade grant. We did the Vinton First Aid Crew funding request. We talked about the Vinton Business Center revenue, the November 2020 financial statements, and the tax and utility write-off earlier tonight we discussed. And so November 2020, things are still looking really good. Revenues are at 117% of budget in the general fund. Expenditures are at 91%. The grant fund revenues are at 11% and expenditures are at 7%. Utility fund revenues are at 115% and expenditures are at 83%. Capital fund revenues is a transfer from the general fund, so that's 100%, and expenditures are at 259%. This will be fixed by some of the CARES Act resolution that we passed earlier tonight, because there's certain things in the capital fund that were covered by the grant and so forth. The stormwater fund is at 100% of budget for revenue, and expenditures are at 86% of budget. So when we take a look at our cash position for November of 2020, general fund cash is at 1.7 million. The grant fund is negative cash of 5,000. Utility fund has positive cash of 1.6 million. The capital fund actually has cash of 281,000. The stormwater fund has cash of 81,000. So total cash is 3.7 million. Now 508,000 is restricted cash. This is such as asset forfeiture money for the police department is the biggest portion of that. And then the police evidence fund is also separate. That's 26,000. Set aside for that. General fund investments is 2.3 million. Utility fund investments is 979,000. So total investments of 3.2 million. And we ended November with total cash and investments of 6.9 million. Some of the other items that I mentioned earlier, the budget resolution for the CARES Act. This is actually to move budget for salary expense for public safety patrol from the general fund to the capital fund for CARES Act reimbursement. So the CARES Act let us reimburse ourselves for those salary and benefits. And then we were using those salary savings to do some of the capital improvements that you saw earlier. The budget resolution is to appropriate a donation that the War Memorial received. The facade grant is to appropriate revenue for early removal of facade from a CDBG program to the town's contribution for the EDA facade program. The Vinton First Aid Crew funding request is a request that we get whenever they ask for a draw from the amount that council sets aside for them. And so they actually had a request for us to review, which I think was for merchandise for the volunteers. And that was approved at the meeting. And then the next thing we discussed was the Vinton Business Center revenue. This is a standalone revenue for fiscal year 21. Previously, this was included in our gain sharing agreement, so we never really got to see the full amount of it. This first year was kind of a shock for us and probably Roanoke County too. When they calculated Vinton's 50% off of the Vinton Business Center, it was $122,000. So we have received that, and it should be a continuing revenue as long as the Vinton Business Center stays occupied. And then the utility and tax write-off, this was discussed earlier. And that is all I have. So I'm glad to answer any questions. And then we would respectfully ask you to consider approving the November financial statement.
Okay. Council, any questions, comments? No? If not, we will entertain. So were you gonna show the November statement? Is that right, Ann? Or do we just go ahead? We just need to approve that,
Sure, I can go ahead and put it back on. Give me 1 second.
if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Okay.
Okay, financial reports. That's what we need to approve for tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, Council, you've heard the presentation. All good news, by the way, I think. So are there any other comments or questions for you?
I'll just say the numbers are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time that hand gives us a report, they just get better and better. So and if there's no other comments, I would be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Lyles, a second by Vice Mayor McCarty. Any other comments, questions? If not, well, let's see, I think we just do a voice vote on this one. Isn't that correct? All in
Yes.
favor? Right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye, or waving your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, Ann, for a great presentation. I appreciate that. It's always, as Keith mentioned, it's been good news. We've really been blessed lately, and it shows up in those reports. All right, so I think we have one other committee meeting for this evening. That would be the Public Works Committee. Pete?
Myself. I have just a very brief presentation on the Public Works Committee from last week. We discussed a number of those items a moment ago. Let's see. All right, so we did have a Public Works Committee meeting virtually on January 13th, which was last Wednesday. Vice Mayor McCarty was present, as well as Councilmember Keith Lyles, including myself, Bo, Ms. Acker, Susan, and Mike Caldwell were also present. The first item we discussed that evening were project updates. So Bo briefed the committee on cost estimates he's receiving on updating our signal lights. So these are our traffic signals. We have 11 intersections that are signalized in the town of Benton. And I think all of those are at least 50 years old, in some cases older. And we're certainly over the years had our issues with various intersections and different signal lights. And in some cases are getting more difficult to find parts to keep those operational. So this includes the hanging signal itself, the back plates, the conduit, the wiring, and the control boxes. So we're getting updates on what it would cost to replace each of those intersections. And we will be bringing that forward to councils at the strategic plan retreat in hopes to get some guidance on what you may want to tackle with current year funds or program in future CIP. Similarly, there are some considerable larger scale paving projects needed on our primary thoroughfares through the town, such as Virginia Avenue from Pollard up through to Hardy, and then Hardy down to the town limits by Wolf Creek, and then a large section of Washington Avenue, essentially from Pollard up to Preston. So those are 4-lane intersections or 4-lane roads, a lot of highway lanes there, a lot of square footage to cover. So we're getting updates on what it would cost to get those sections paved. And that would take care of all of our primary travel routes in the town. We've done a good job over the last 5 to 6, 7 years getting our neighborhoods paved and touched and updated. And we've hit some of our primary routes, but these are 3 that are pretty significant paving jobs. So we're also getting some estimates on what it would cost to get those caught up. In some cases, these are 40 and 50-year-olds since they've been paved as well. For example, Hardy Road has not been paved since it was turned into 4 lanes from there at Bypass to the town limits at Wolf Creek. So you can tell that's a project that is in need. So again, we'll be presenting some cost estimates to council at the future retreat for your consideration. The second item was refuse ordinance updates and operational adjustments. Those were the items that we discussed during council meeting for the refuse ordinance update. So we talked in pretty good length in that. That wasn't the first time we discussed it in Public Works. So this was kind of the finishing touches on the ordinance updates prior to bringing them to council, and updated council on the service operational adjustments that are outside of or in addition to the ordinance updates themselves of what we're actually doing on the ground. When we have a violation, we are actually collecting the trash and tagging them, where previously we would not collect the trash and notify the customer. So we've made a little slight operational adjustment there with how we tag and then what we do to collect the trash of those that are in violation. And let's see, we had bulk and recycling updates. We talked a little bit about just giving the Public Works Committee an update on where we are with bulk collection. If you recall, back in August, we made the change to go to bi-weekly bulk and alternating with recycling. And so we continue to monitor that. We've had some staff changes of the bulk driver, as well as some seasonal issues with leaf collection and Christmas tree collection, and then the holidays. And so, that's a little bit of a unique time of year as it is. And so as we transition out of those fall months and the Christmas season, we feel like we can now get a better handle on a typical bulk collection cycle. So we're collecting some good data for the next couple of months, more data, so that we can discuss this with the Public Works Committee and full council in the spring and perhaps earlier into the summer, and to consider if we want to make additional modifications to our bulk collection schedule. And we didn't have any other business that I recall. We talked about a couple of things outside of the operations of Public Works, but no really Public Works items. And we did set our next meeting for March 10th at 8:30 a.m. And I will ask Sabrina or Keith if they have anything to add to that.
No, sir. I think you covered it all very well.
Yeah. Mayor, just as an update with this meeting, Bo isn't with us in this meeting, but it was mentioned when we were talking about signal lights that Clearview probably would not make the list. And that was straight from Bo. That was straight from Bo. That's what Bo said. So he's not here, so I'm throwing him under the bus.
That's like something Bo would say, right?
Well, to the casual citizen out there listening, we are absolutely prioritizing Clearview, because we do know that is a problem child of an intersection for us. So not just because Keith lives there, but because, it is in desperate need.
Yeah, Bo was just kidding. I thought it was funny though.
Yeah. Yeah, that is funny, but you're right. It definitely needs some work. Oh my goodness.
I do think that with that meeting, I do think that Bo has a great idea with replacing them all at once. Maybe even getting a better rate as doing them all at once. And to Pete's, what Pete said, I didn't realize that all of our signal lights are as old as they are. So, Benton is transforming our downtown and new businesses and all, and now it's time to transform our town.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. You're exactly right. And those of us who have sold electronic equipment and systems over the years know that if you're, like you said, if you do it all at one time, you get it at a nice rate. Not only that, it helps with the maintenance when everything is the same, it's the same model and the same brand and all that good stuff. So I think that's a good idea as far as future maintenance, make it a lot easier. So, okay. With that, I'll move on to just a few remarks under the mayor section. You'll be happy to know I don't have any prepared long remarks as I do sometimes. Watch it, Keith, no cheering there, but I did want to mention a few things. As always, I want to thank staff for their continued hard work. And in particular, I'd like to thank them tonight for those reports. Thought it was important, certainly that all of council have that information, but also our citizens who might be viewing tonight, they can see what's been going on in town. And believe me, there's a lot of work going on also. We continue to work on our economic development and have some great results there. As Pete mentioned earlier, a restaurant opened today, Our Daily Bread. And we're excited that those folks are in town. I think that'll be a great addition to the variety of restaurants and entertainment that we're developing here in town. And as you know, more coming real soon with Joe Goodpie. So it's really an exciting time, the time to celebrate here in Vinton and be thankful for all the blessings that are coming our way. Some of the other celebration is the hard work that we've seen discussed and displayed here tonight, certainly from the police department and their awards and recognitions and the GFOA. So our finance department continues to do a great job too. By the way, speaking of the updates, I love that picture that has the shows the Vinton sign as you walk in. That signage right there as you walk in the door with the big Vinton seal. That's pretty cool. I like that real well. They did a nice job on that. The other thing that we may have glossed over a little bit in our leasing program, as Pete mentioned, we started leasing the police vehicles some years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, it proved the theory that the maintenance went down drastically because we now have good, dependable vehicles. And of course, I think Chief will attest to the fact that certainly helps with morale. And I think our public works folks will enjoy the new vehicles too. So that's important. That's a biggie, you know. As I say, didn't have a long list of prepared remarks. I will say in closing though, I hope all of council members in particular will take a look at the notice that VML, the Virginia Municipal League, sent out concerning the bill in state legislator. I think it's in the legislation, I think it's bill number SB 1157, which would remove the opportunity for local governments to hold elections anytime other than in November. So I hope you all take a look at that. That's an important bill, and let your representatives know how you feel about it. I think most of you know I'm adamantly opposed to that. I think our May elections are important for a lot of reasons. I think the May elections, for one, allow people to run that are not necessarily interested in being involved in all the noise, if I can say that, in November. Can you imagine going to vote for the president and you're looking down the ballot and say, oh, by the way, here's some guys running for council? I just really think it'd be a detriment to us continue to attract great people to run for council. We've been very fortunate in that we have some great talented people that are interested in serving the community and not necessarily interested in the politics. So, boy, I got way down the road there that I didn't mean to, but I would just ask council and anyone else that's interested in that to take a look at the legislation. I'm pretty sure the number is SB 1157. So apologize for getting off track there. You guys know I don't like to get into the political stuff. So with that, we'll turn it over to council for their closing remarks. Vice Mayor McCarty, do you have anything further this evening?
Yes, I do. As I look down my notes here as to what we've talked about tonight, I just did some bullet points, and we had police awards, treasury awards, an outstanding report, 2 new restaurants opening up, the manager's report about an entire fleet of vehicles for the public works, all the municipal building upgrades. 2020 was bad, but we didn't let it get us down. I
Yeah,
think that we are an awesome group. I am proud to be a part of it. We've got the best staff around. There's just no way that anybody could top them. They are the best of the best. Even if, they graduated from Stamp River High School. I'm proud of that too. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. I did receive a text today, and it was like a safe that was open with all of these papers coming out of it. It was actually from Ann, and there was the water bills that had been dropped off. So I want to thank Ann and whoever is able to work with her. I hope that you were able to get that done today, but it wasn't a large amount that was there. So, but anyway, thanks to everybody. I so enjoy serving, and I so appreciate our staff.
yeah. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for those great remarks. Appreciate that. Councilmember Lyles, your turn. You have anything further this evening?
Just a couple comments, Mayor. One is I kind of like your prepared speeches. They're a little bit shorter.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'll keep that in mind.
I did enjoy the, Sabrina touched on a lot of things and we do it every council meeting about just how awesome our town is, staff is, the businesses that are wanting to come here. I enjoyed the ribbon cutting today at our Daily Bread. The display cabinets of all the food that they have with the cakes, the pies, and the bread. I got lunch there and it was fantastic. So can't wait to go have breakfast there as well. The staff seemed very friendly and it's a great place, a great addition to our town. I would like to second or just comment on the vehicles as well. I know with the chief and then Pete and Public Works is working on doing theirs. I do think that's a great idea for a company that I used to work for. We had company vehicles, and when you get a company vehicle handed down to you that's been driven by someone else and things like that, it's you can't really hold anybody accountable for anything that happens to it, because we can just blame the guy before us. I do think it does it holds people accountable when they have a newer vehicle. And also, to your point, it does boost the morale, and it's a sense of pride too. They want to have a vehicle that stays fairly new. So I'll see that we'll probably have, of course, less maintenance, but yet also less wear and tear also, just because of people will take care of their own company vehicle, if you will. So I do think that's a great idea. And Mayor, I'll second you on the November elections. I like the way that we do it here in the town. With the May elections, we don't get into the political realm of sides or parties. We all run an independent, and I think it would be difficult for us to stand out in an election that has multiple people on the ballot. So I will go visit that. I did see the email, and I will write my opinion on that.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Lyles. I certainly appreciate your comments. Very, very good comments. Appreciate that. And with that, we will move. And by the way, Councilmember Lyles, I'll try to have prepared speeches from now on. Keep it short.
Just kidding, Mayor. The one morning was.
I understand.
It was 30 seconds and you're gone.
There you go. So with that, we'll move to Councilmember Mullins. You have anything further this evening?
Well, like the Vice Mayor, I made some bullet points too, and I won't repeat she touched on a lot that I had written down also. along the lines of our great staff. Ann and Pete both this week have helped me out with different things. And Pete got me caught up on some things that happened before I was elected, and took the time to get me straight on that. And Ann has helped me out this week, and I know they're both busy and there's a lot going on, and I really appreciate that. I am excited to get back to Chambers. That just looks fantastic, and I can't wait to see it in person. And the other thing that I had that nobody said was, as a nerdy horticulturalist, I really enjoyed the noxious weeds. I'm into that, so I like that.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's not something you see at council meeting every.
Right.
Peanut butter.
I never heard that, though. That's a good one.
Yeah, really. All righty. Thank you, Lori, for those comments. I think council member Stovall had to step away to take care of a family matter, rather pressing. So I guess that's all the remarks for this evening, unless there's something else to come before council. Anyone? No? Well, if there's nothing else to come before council meeting this evening, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor McCarty, second by Councilmember Mullins. All in favor signify by turning off your computers. Be careful.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.